Benvenuti a questo nuovo approfondimento. Let's get right into it, shall we? Today we are uncorking a truly fascinating topic that honestly completely reshapes how we think about what we drink. We're setting the stage for a deep dive into the hidden architecture of wine. Have you ever wondered what exactly makes a bottle of wine truly valuable? Like why you might happily drop a premium on one bottle while completely ignoring another sitting right next to it? Well, it turns out the answer isn't just floating in the fermentation tanks or buried in the soil. It's actually a highly strategic blend of hard science and human psychology.
I want to hook you right away with this genuinely provocative question pulled straight from our source material. Does every wine have a technically modifiable emotional potential? Just think about that for a second. We usually treat emotion as this spontaneous, unpredictable, totally subjective thing, right? But what if the emotional impact a wine has on you, that specific feeling of nostalgia, joy, or sheer luxury, is actually something that can be calculated, engineered, and modified starting right from the dirt it grows in? You know, it's incredibly easy to just get lost in the romance of a vineyard. The mesmerizing rolling geometry, it's beautiful. But we are looking way past that surface beauty today. To a highly trained agronomist and a savvy marketer, those rows are actually a complex matrix of hard scientific data and latent emotional power just waiting to be unlocked. We're going to explore the hidden mechanics operating right beneath the surface of the soil.
Here is our roadmap for today's explainer. First, beyond intrinsic wine quality. Second, measuring 9 agronomic factors. Third, the emotional megaphone. Fourth, the 4-quadrant vineyard matrix. And finally, strategies for future growth.
Okay, let's dive right into Section 1, Beyond Intrinsic Wine Quality.
To really understand what drives modern value, we have to recognize a massive shift. The scientific community has traditionally been totally obsessed with intrinsic quality. You know, the tangible stuff, the pH balance, the sugar content, the actual tannins hitting your palate. But, and here's the kicker, the source material highlights that the modern consumer's reaction is deeply, deeply tied to emotional quality. These are the intangible feelings, macro categories like happiness, sadness, or nostalgia that are triggered by a wine's story. It's highly personal, making it incredibly difficult to define and codify. Yet it's this untethered emotional reaction that ultimately dictates a wine's absolute prestige in the market.
Moving on to Section 2, Measuring 9 Agronomic Factors.
Now, before we can even think about capturing emotions, we have to start with the earth. Because, let's face it, you simply cannot build a compelling story on a foundation of bad grapes. To measure this physical foundation, the source introduces us to the Bigot Index. Published in 2022 by Saccolini and Bigot, this is a highly innovative macro indicator. It's an elegant, remarkably powerful tool that transforms simple vineyard observation into complex, measurable data. Instead of just guessing how good a crop might be, the Bigot Index calculates a vineyard's absolute qualitative potential by assigning specific mathematical weights to very specific field observations.
So what does it actually measure? 9 exact factors. First, grape health, basically the total absence of disease. Second, vine vigor. Third, the exposed leaf area, which dictates photosynthetic efficiency. Fourth is the yield. Fifth is the absolutely crucial ratio between that exposed leaf area and the yield. Sixth is water stress, because, surprisingly, vines actually need a modulated amount of stress to produce great wine. Seventh is bunch morphology. Looser bunches just ripen more evenly. Eighth is biodiversity, which gives the vineyard necessary resilience. And finally, the age of the vineyard, as older vines simply adapt better. Monitoring these creates a highly pragmatic, sustainable approach to producing quality grapes. It's all about doing only what is strictly necessary.
When you start looking at a vineyard ecosystem through the lens of these exact 9 factors, the whole picture changes. Measuring these variables allows vineyards to make precise, highly targeted interventions. It literally shifts viticulture from this romantic guessing game into a rigorous system of continuous improvement, ensuring the physical product is as close to perfect as scientifically possible.
All right, Section 3, the emotional megaphone.
Here's the thing, though. Perfect grapes alone, they don't command premium prices. The crucial point is captured in this brilliant metaphor directly from our source. Storytelling amplifies like an emotional megaphone. Think of the intrinsic quality of the wine as the voice and the storytelling as the megaphone. The emotions produced by a wine aren't just magically connected to the liquid itself. They originate from a series of intangible assets that the product carries with it.
So what actually are these intangible assets that make up a wine's emotional potential? Well, they include the geography and terroir,
The text gives a great example. Imagine a Sangiovese from a ridiculously famous, gorgeous hillside in Chianti versus some unknown plot. The liquid in the glass might be incredibly similar, but the emotional potential is vastly different. It also includes the historical significance of the winery, brand prestige, innovative production processes, sustainability certifications, and of course, medals won at competitions. These intangibles act as a massive lever on the price a consumer is ultimately willing to pay.
To really put this fusion of science and emotion into perspective, check out this number, 70. Out of a whopping 1,215 vineyards examined at the Vinitaly 2023 exhibition, only 70 exceeded 90 points on the Bigot Index. Now think about the sheer marketing power of that. When a vineyard earns that objective hard science score and slaps it as a sticker on their bottle, exactly like a competition medal, it serves as a massive emotional driver for the consumer. It is literally hard data fueling human emotion.
Which brings us to Section 4, the 4-quadrant vineyard matrix.
And this brilliantly illustrates where wineries map their actual real-world strategy. By plotting qualitative potential on the vertical axis against emotional potential on the horizontal axis, the hard science of the Bigot Index and the psychology of the emotional megaphone finally collide on a single map. Every single vineyard an estate owns can be placed onto this map as a circle, with the size of the circle representing the size of the vineyard. This visually maps out the wineries as-is state, exactly where they stand today in the market.
Understanding the coordinates of the strategic chessboard is absolutely vital. In the top left, you have high quality but low emotion. Basically, great wine, but nobody knows or cares. In the bottom right, you have low quality but high emotion. Fantastic story, but a pretty disappointing pour. In the bottom left, you have low quality and low emotion. Yeah, you do not want to be there. And finally, the top right, where both quality and emotion are high.
Make no mistake, that top right quadrant, that is the absolute holy grail. Every single winery's dream to-be scenario is to move all their vineyards right into that top right space, where absolute intrinsic quality meets maximum emotional resonance. That is the sweet spot that generates the maximum possible value for both the company and the customer.
Finally, Section 5, strategies for future growth. So how does a vineyard actually move its circles across this matrix? The source is crystal clear in the correct strategic order here, especially for a vineyard starting in that really difficult bottom left quadrant. Step 1 must always be to invest heavily in agronomic actions, like managing that leaf-to-yield ratio or water stress we discussed earlier, to increase the baseline qualitative potential. Only in Step 2, once the physical quality is absolutely secured, do you build an effective storytelling and marketing strategy to pull that wine over to the right side of the graph.
But wait, we really need to inject a major expert warning here. The source explicitly flags a common, totally fatal mistake vineyards make. They try to use marketing to basically wallpaper over qualitative flaws. But you simply cannot create emotional potential out of thin air. If the intrinsic quality in the bottle doesn't meet the consumer's expectations, all the brilliant storytelling in the world will ultimately fail. The agronomy literally has to come first.
To sum up the incredible journey we've taken in today's explainer, creating a truly valuable wine is an architecture of two completely different disciplines. It requires mastering the gritty physical reality of the single vine leaf, measuring its exposure to the sun, managing its water, and then directly connecting that biological perfection to the very real psychological forces of the global market.
So, I want to leave you with a totally new, highly analytical way to look at your very next glass. Ask yourself, where does your absolute favorite wine sit on this matrix right now? Are they relying on top-tier agronomy or a massive emotional megaphone? And what strategic moves are they making behind the scenes to capture not just your palate but your emotions? Grazie per averci seguito, and I'll catch you next time.